Welcome to the Duckpin Podcast with your host, Brian Griffiths. And now, here's Brian.
Election season is right around the corner, and next year we will have an election for many state and county-wide offices here across Maryland. And of course, particularly in my neck of the woods here in Anne Arundel County, of particular interest to me is the race for Anne Arundel County Executive. Joining me tonight is the first candidate who has filed for county executive in Anne Arundel County next year, Republican candidate Chris Jahn. Chris, thanks for joining us on this week's show.
Thanks, Brian. I'm glad to be here.
Well, glad you could come on and join with us. So first off, tell people who you are and why you're running for county executive.
All right. Well, in talking to my wife, we just feel like we need change. And I know we hear that all the time in government. Oh, we need change, but I feel like we need real change. Stuart Pittman's got his work cut out for him right now. I mean, he's dealing with the pandemic, and people love what he's doing. People hate what he's doing. At the end of the day, look, honestly, he's got a tough job right now. He really does. And as we hopefully seem to be on the tail end of this thing, the business community has just gotten beaten real bad over the last year. And that's really where my mindset is, where my heart is getting a healthy business community out there and really getting that business side of things going. I've been in management for 30 plus years. So I definitely have that mindset for business. And I think there's just some different things that we need to do in government. I think we need to look at things a little bit differently. We definitely need to make sure we have our business community healthy. That obviously is a win for everybody, Brian. I mean, the businesses make money. Yeah, that's great. But so do the people. So do the citizens of Anne Arundel County. They get jobs, they get better pay, they get insurance. And at the end of the day, the government then gets revenue because people are working again. But we got police relations that we need to tackle. We got to make sure that the budget's in good shape. So, I just think we need a little bit different mindset. As for me, I got into the race early. And there's a reason that I got into the race early. Before you saw that I was running for county executive, you had no idea who Chris Jahn was. And the truth is, the people that I'm going to be asking to vote for me, they don't know who I am either. So I feel like I needed to get a little bit of a head start on things, let people know who I am. I am the average middle-class husband and father. Got two great kids. Like I said, I've been in management for a lot of years. Currently, I do recruiting, but I have been in management for a long time. I don't know what else do you want to know?
Well, let's talk a little bit about about COVID. You brought that up, and obviously there have been people who have praised Stuart Pittman's response to COVID. There have been a lot of people who have criticized the response to COVID. So just if you were in his shoes, what would you have done differently, and what would you do to get county businesses back open 100%?
Well, from a county executive position, I mean, honestly, County Executive Pittman can't open businesses to 100% because he has to follow no greater than what the state mandates are. So he is limited in that, in that area. I do believe that the state mandates are more than adequate. The one thing that I believe we've done and the county executive has done is maybe gone a little too harsh with certain things. I mean, at one point, we're looking to say, okay, you can't have any kind of in-person dining. Now, fortunately, at the end of the year, whether you think it was the court case or whatever, Executive Pittman did do an about face on that. But here we are talking about no in-person dining. You can do outside dining, you can do pickup, but it was okay to go to the casino. And that didn't make okay, we can go and sit next to somebody and gamble, but I can't sit next to my wife and kids and have dinner. I think that we went a little too far there. I think the state mandates were adequate. I think it would have done a better job at keeping the businesses, especially our restaurants, rolling. There's a lot of places that have gone out of business. So you said you were from Anne Arundel County. Maybe you've heard of Sunset. My wife and I used to love going to Sunset.
Never going to get that cream of crab again.
That cream of crab and the chicken parmesan. Oh, I loved going on Italian nights and getting the chicken parm. But they're done. And it's a direct thing from COVID. An institution here in Anne Arundel County is closed. The caterer,
Michael's 8th
Avenue just closed. Honestly, this isn't Anne Arundel County related, but Martin's East Wind just closed. And that's near and dear to my heart. I spent 15 years working there. Oh, I just got my dog coming to say hi. I spent 15 years of my life there. So, these businesses closing hurt. And, we're going to need to really get back to business. Some of these businesses, they may need some tax incentives to stay in business. And then we want to help these businesses grow. And I know it's real easy to say, oh, let's just give a tax incentive. I kind of want to hit in the middle. I really think the best answer in just about every case, to be honest with you, Brian, is finding a way to build a bridge and meet in the middle and come together in the middle. I know people don't like seeing, oh, we're going to give tax breaks to the businesses. But you know what? Has a poor person ever given you a job? No. Yeah. And if they did, you didn't last very long. The American dream can happen, but these businesses need to grow. So it's not just keeping them in business, it's helping them to grow. So from a business perspective, if you're growing, and I don't know all the numbers just yet, I need to run them by my platform committee yet to really put the numbers together. But, let's say hypothetically you grow your business by 30%. Well, you know what? Let's get you a tax break for doing that. The more people work, the more people are, first of all, it's just a feel good, everybody wants a job. But now you got people are not on state and county services. They're not on state insurance anymore. So, that's really kind of the direction I see the business community heading.
One of the big issues right now that's going on at the county level is there is a bill before the General Assembly that would devolve the transfer tax authority from the General Assembly, setting property tax rates at that state level and putting it in state code, and devolving that down to the county council level. Now, Pittman has suggested that he wants to do this in order to raise the transfer tax from 1% to 1.5% on transactions, property transactions over $1 million, for the purpose of funding workforce housing projects. So I kind of have a two-part question here. One, where do you stand about devolving the transfer tax authority from the state level to the county council level? And secondly, where do you stand on Pittman's proposal to raise the transfer tax on those high dollar transactions to fund workforce housing?
I think we need to kind of answer your second part of the question, Brian. We need to tackle the root cause to the housing problem. And a lot of times throwing money at things doesn't always work. You got to boil it down to the root cause. I personally right now am against any kind of tax increase, whether it's a tax or fees. Okay. People aren't working. And, there's people that are going to have to sell their home, even if it's $1 million home. Okay. But, there's probably a reason that they're selling that $1 million home. They could afford it when they bought it. Now all of a sudden they can't. And then we're going to say, okay, well, now you got to pay an additional 1.5%. And you can call it what you will, whether it's a tax or a fee. I'm against any kind of, at least for now, I'm against any kind of increase of anything. To sit there and say, oh, there should never be a tax increase. Okay, look, I'm a conservative. I'm against just about any tax increase out there. But look, at the end of the day, the government needs revenue to run. And the more free stuff you want, the more you got to tax, or the better of a healthy business community you have to have. Therefore, you get your revenue organically without raising taxes. To to the first part of your question, I'm perfectly fine letting it be decided by the individual the local governments. I believe in the power of the local government. The more things that the local government can decide, the better. So that I actually am a fan of. But any kind of, especially with the pandemic, any kind of increase in taxes or fees, you just can't even. I can't fathom even contemplating that right now. People are hurting, and we're going to say, "Oh, give us more money." No, we can't do that.
Speaking of more money, the County Board of Education has passed a $1.4 billion spending proposal. They've sent it over to the county executive for inclusion in his FY22 budget that will be introduced before the county council. Where do you stand right now on the board's request for the $1.4 billion for next year?
To be honest with you, Brian, I probably need to get a little bit more educated on that specifically, and the budget item. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure the schools are funded. We need to make sure the schools are taken care of. I've always believed that our educators aren't paid enough. I know we're out there now with Kerwin, and where the heck is the money coming from for Kerwin? That's a great question. We need to make sure that the schools are taken care of. The teachers themselves need to be taken care of. The physical properties need to be taken care of. And honestly, there is some classes that I believe we need to get back to doing. There's some basics that we need to get back to. We want to make sure that everybody is qualified to get a job. And this kind of goes back to that whole housing thing. What's the root cause why people can't afford the housing? Well, maybe we need to make sure that they're educated on those things at a high school level. I know I was, when I went to public school, they taught us that stuff. I don't want them to do that anymore. So we need to get back to that.
Let's explore that a little bit, because that's always a fascinating topic for me. It's just talking about kind of the curriculum. And I know there are a lot of people who want to put a lot of things into the curriculum. I know that some people want to put in household finance into the curriculum. I've been a big champion of making sure that we have some sort of basic civics education in the curriculum. I think the last election showed the importance of that. What are some of the things that you think should need to be either added to the curriculum or, like you said, restored to the curriculum from years past?
Well, let's take a look at shop classes. When I went through through school, we had to take some kind of a home ec class. We had to take a wood shop and metal shop and what have you. I would like to see some VOTech type things in there, so that when these kids graduate, they have a skill set. They have something that they could take into the workforce. I always champion to my kids, you need education. You need to go to you need to further your education. College isn't for everybody. Okay. Whether it be, I'm not a school person, because Lord knows I wasn't, or, hey, I can't afford it because, well, I couldn't. But if we're teaching, if we have classes within the school system, auto shop, I took auto shop. Those trade type classes, I would really like to see us get those back, back in the curriculum. I have a friend of mine in Baltimore County who actually teaches wood shop. I'd like to make sure that all those classes are offered here. And then, we need some basic finance classes. When you graduate, you need to know how to balance a checkbook. You need to understand how the stock market works. To me, that's just basic stuff. But I don't feel like we're teaching it anymore.
Anybody who's seen me work with wood knows that my shop class did not stick with me very well over the years. Let's move on to the kind of development. The county's going through the Plan 2040 process right now, the general development plan. There's a lot of different takes on both sides of the aisle about development. You can argue, you could find people on both Republican side and the Democratic side arguing both for and against further development. What are your kind of thoughts about the future of development in the county? Because obviously, as county executive, you would have a role in, guiding the development of the county in the future.
Yeah, I know right now there's talk about a development project at Quiet Waters, which seems to be getting um, a lot of looks. Um, Development is great as long as it's done responsibly. Um, we seem to have areas that we can redevelop as opposed to developing undeveloped areas. Okay, you have to look at the environmental side. I mean, do we really want to lose all of our trees and our woodlands because we want to put up a new housing project? Um, Meanwhile, there's strip centers that are already out there that are just about vacant that we need to redevelop. So I think if we work on redeveloping what we have, maybe we could back off on developing new stuff. Um, I'm I want to see a healthy business community. You need development for that, right? Um, but you need to walk that line between doing what's best for the community from a business health perspective, and what's right for the community from an ecological perspective and that type of thing. So you got to find the middle ground.
One of the things that Pittman has done over the course of his term has kind of focused more on high density development as opposed to the more sprawl development. What are your thoughts kind of on that, on what his process has been, focusing more on those high density developments and kind of creating that more town center smart growth type growth as opposed to kind of the sprawl that we've seen over the course of the last 50 years in the county?
I think if you're able to keep things condensed, I think from a bigger picture, it works better. Again, it will leave the parks, the recs, the undeveloped land. We need that. Okay, do you really want to live in a concrete jungle? But we also, again, we need that development side. So it's about finding what's in the middle. And honestly, I do kind of like the idea of keeping that stuff kind of condensed. That way you have your pockets of developed area, but you also have your pockets of, wow, beautiful streams and the trees and the parks. And we want that. So you got to be careful so that you can have both.
Let's talk about county spending. You mentioned obviously you're a conservative. You don't support any tax cuts, kind of as a general principle. But let's talk about spending specifically. County spends a lot of money, regardless of whether you think that's good or bad. The county spends a lot of money. Yeah. Where do you think we are on spending? Do you think we're already spending too much money? And is there any place in the county budget you think we need to cut back a little bit on?
Well, I always think we're spending too much money. Again, I am a conservative at heart, and I always think we're spending too much money. But one of the things that I want to do is trim the excess from the budget. Okay, who were the best people to trim the excess from the budget? Your department heads. Obviously, the police chief is going to know more about running that department than I'm going to. Okay, the fire chief, the school board, they know more about theirs. So they're the best ones to trim the fat. They're the best ones to trim the excess. What I want to see us do is almost take a business approach to it. How do you trim the excess? How do you get a salesperson to sell? Bonuses and incentives. How do you get a manager who doesn't own the business to actually care about the bottom line? Business, bonuses and incentives. I'd like to do something like that, with the department heads. Now, I don't want to see, what I don't want to do is say, hey, Mr. Fire Chief, I'm going to give you a bonus in your pocket. I kind of get a little nervous about that because then people may cut the quality of the service to save their money so that they can put money in their pocket. But I want to take at least a business approach to it and say, okay, I want you to trim the excess by an arbitrary number, 10%. Get a wish list together. What is your wish list? What do you want for your department? We'll make sure you have what you need, but what do you want? And let's get that wish list there. Okay, great. Now let's go and save the money so that you can have that. Okay. And then we can look at what do we do with the money that we save? Let's take 33% of it and say, here you go towards your wish list, whatever you want. 33% of it can go to new stuff. Maybe some new things that we want to do. Maybe get the police athletic league back up and running, or throw some money at the rec councils or whatever. And then maybe 34 cents on the dollar, we can figure out how to get that back to the taxpayer.
Okay.
So
everybody likes getting money back. That's definitely paying less taxes. We've already kind of touched on education. We've touched on zoning. We've touched on spending. We've touched on COVID businesses, that sort of thing. What is the biggest issue you think is facing our county that I haven't mentioned yet?
Well, I don't know that it's a county issue as much as it's a national issue. I call it police relations. Others like to call it police reform. I don't buy into the police reform thing. I think there's a relations issue there. And I really think that is something that, as county executive, if you're not addressing it, then you're doing everyone a disservice. You've got one side that, says, oh, we need to, get rid of the police, basically. You got the other side that wants to bury their head in the sand and say there's not a problem. When again, the answer's in the middle. And we really need to deal with that. And I think that I have a different way to deal with that. I'm not on the front lines of that issue. So am I the best person to say this is what we have to do? No, I'm not. I'll be very honest with you. The county council, do they mean well? Of course they do. But are they on the front lines? Not really. So what I would really like to do is do something honestly similar to what Barack Obama did with his beer summit. Take 3 or 4 people from each side. And I mean frontline people. Okay. Frontline police officers, not ones that are sitting in the office. Folks that are on the front lines that are running around saying F the police. And you know what? Ask them simply, do you really want to try to build a bridge here? Do you really want to try to come together? Because if you don't, then you're not the right people. But if you really want to try to figure it out, then let us sit down and let me have that conversation, because they're the ones that can come up with the best answer. Okay. Not politicians. That's one thing I'm not a part of the political machine. Politicians aren't the best ones to figure that answer out. We may need them to do the legislative work, but to actually come up with the ideas, we need people that are on the front lines of that issue to say, hey, you know what? This is what we need from both sides, and then meet in the middle.
One last question before I get you out of here. And this gets kind of more to the electoral calculus or everything that's going on here. Obviously, you mentioned at the beginning, you filed early because people don't necessarily know who you are. You need to get your name out there. Right. Now, there are a number of other people who either have talked about running or are rumored to running. We've heard Delegate Sid Saab, former Delegate Herb McMillan, Kendall Ehrlich, 2 county councilmen, Nathan Volke and Jessica Hare. That's a lot of people who have already have political bases. They already have name ID in the county. So it's kind of a 2-part question. What makes you stand out from them? You already mentioned one thing, that you're not a politician. So that obviously is one of the reasons why you would stand out. But what else makes you stand out from them? And kind of probably a bigger question is, how do you overcome their institutional advantages? How do you raise the money, get the volunteers, get the name out there in order to not just win a primary, but also to beat Stuart Pittman next November?
Well, and I guess that ultimately everybody who's going to throw their name in this ring ultimately want the same thing, and that's to make sure that we win back the county executive seat. So while I'm going to give it everything I got, ultimately that's the goal. But what makes me stand out from them? As I said, I'm not a politician. I'm not a part of the political machine. And honestly, I think that resonates with people right now. Love Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump, he wasn't a part of the political machine, and those that really supported him, that's what they liked. Yes, there were negatives, absolutely. But to me, that's what people want right now. They don't want the same old, same old. I'm not part of the elite. I'm a working class guy. When I originally decided to go after this position, I did some research and called the Anne Arundel County GOP, had a conversation with a gentleman that was very, very helpful. But one of the things that I got out of that is it really seems like most of the people that run are your affluential people that have a lot of money and can throw a lot of money at their campaign. Yeah, I can't do that. I'm a middle class working stiff. And honestly, I think that resonates with people. I think people want that. How am I going to raise the money? That's a great question. And when I figure it out, Brian, I'm going to tell you the answer. Again, that's why I started this thing so early, because nobody knows who I am. I've got to get the word out there. And honestly, you're a big part of that. You sent me an email within 6 hours of my filing my candidacy. And, I looked at this, I'm like, really? I don't even have my website built yet. That's it. It's starting early. It's getting the word out. It's using the people that I know in and around Anne Arundel County to help get people to know who I am. How am I going to raise the money? When I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Well, if people want to reach out and give you any money, or people want to reach out and contact you with anything of information about your campaign, how can they do that?
Well, Brian, they could go to my either my Facebook page, which is Chris Jahn. That's JAHN. Chris Jahn, the number 4 AACO, and they can reach me on my Facebook page there. They can reach me on my website, which is the same thing, Chris Jahn, the number 4 AACO.com. That is now up and running. There's opportunities there to, there's ways for you to email me. Let me know what you think, because look, I want to know what people want to do. What is important to people. They can donate. Hey, that's always a good thing. That's how I can raise that money. They could donate. Eventually there'll be, hats and shirts and all the fun stuff that you can buy, but everything you need to know about me, you'll be able to find on my website. Again, that's Chris Jahn, the number 4 AACO.com.
Chris Jahn is the first announced Republican candidate for county executive in the 2022 election. Chris, best of luck. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
This has been the Duckpin Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and download.